Namaste and in Lak'ech, and welcome to this episode of One World in a New World. I'm your host, Zen Benefiel, and this week's guest is Manuj Aggarwal, and he is an AI innovator, a thought leader, a keynote speaker. He's the founder, CIO, and CTO of TetraNoodle Technologies, based out of Vancouver, British Columbia. He's an advisory board member for Verify, which is an app that they're developing to actually detect early signs of COVID. He's developed learning management systems, what we call LMSs, for several well-known organizations and institutions. He's a member of eAlliances. He's written a couple of books, very technical, Network Security with pfSense, and we're going to find out what that means, Architect, Deploy, and Operate Enterprise-Grade Firewalls, and another book called Learn Apache Mesos, which is a beginner's guide to scalable cluster management and deployment, really deep in technology. He's also the podcast host for Bootstrapping Your Dreams. So with my business name as Be the Dream, we ought to have some really good conversations about this. Welcome to the show, Manuj.
Thank you so much. Well, you have done so much research. I even forgot about a few things that you mentioned there. So thanks a lot.
Well, good. It's nice to have refreshers. Oh, yeah, I did it too, right?
Yeah.
Forgot about those things. And we get so busy sometimes in our activity to do, and we kind of forget about what we've done already.
Absolutely.
So, our tradition is to kind of dive into the beginnings of how you found your inner awareness, began to explore it, what it was like, what time of life it was for you. So let's begin there. And especially, with the Eastern tradition that you came from, I would imagine that there's, a really rich engagement there. So how did it begin for you?
See, it's been a very interesting journey. As you said, like I grew up in India where all these modalities, especially meditation and just being more spiritual, religion, all of these things originated there, and they are part and parcel of daily life there. But it was funny that when I was growing up, I was actually disillusioned by all these practices, especially organized religion, because I realized that organized religion was more commercial and driving us away from what it means. Like even as a 10-year-old, it didn't make sense to me that on one side they say, God is almighty, it's all loving. And then they say, oh, if you do this thing, you'll burn in hell. So it didn't sort of make sense to me. Sure. And then they said, if you pay us money, we'll fix everything and you'll be fine. So I was like, that doesn't make sense.
And I think that doesn't make sense to a growing number of people as well, because they're all looking for something new, some way to connect. Spirituality is actually, kind of everything's connected. That's the basic.
Yeah, exactly. And so, but just that act of confusion led me to become a little bit curious about what this is all about. So what I did was, I think I was in maybe 10th grade. So that was maybe I was 16 or 17. I came across this person named Osho. If
familiar. Right.
Yeah. So then I heard his tapes. I read a couple of books, and I will admit, maybe 5 to 10% of it made sense. The rest didn't make sense to me at that age. But it was different enough to say, okay, that means there are different points of view. If I start searching, I think I will be able to find something.
Do you remember a kernel of what you garnered from that helped you?
I think his main message that I remember was liberation of thought and not getting tied down by beliefs that are not yours and that are given to us by society, by our parents, and what have you. He again, as I said, it didn't make a lot of sense at that time, but primarily what I remember was his message is like follow the compass of your heart, the GPS of your heart, to see what aligns with you most, resonates with you most, and irrespective of what other people say, what labels they give it, that's the right path. So that's sort of the foundation I remember.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happened was like I read it. I was like, okay, this doesn't make sense to me. I'm a little bit confused. But anyway, it sounds like
there was some resonance in it.
Yeah.
There was a gentleman named Matthias de Mott that had an interview with Tucker Carlson recently. You may be familiar with him. He authored The Psychology of Totalitarianism. However, one of the things that he said that he feels like humans are really looking for, and that's empathic resonance, which is apparently what you got from, even though you didn't, it was kind of confusing intellectually. There was a deeper empathic resonance with it that you felt like, yeah, this is something I need to explore further.
Yeah, exactly. But then, so I had this sort of a little bit of a dabbling into Osho, and then I sort of went away back into my teenage years, chasing girls and just doing what teenagers do. And then I came across a girl I was pursuing, and she and her dad used to be into spiritual practices and things like that. So just in order to impress her, I started learning a little bit more about that. And then it started to make more sense. Like, it's like taking a piece of the puzzle and you find another piece, and it's like, okay, that also fits here. So it looks like, this is all real. This is all a reality. Because after you are disillusioned by religion, which is so dominant in your culture, you always are skeptical. Okay, oh, this is another theory that they are trying to push towards me. But when you see multiple pieces coming together, it makes more sense.
Oh, it does. And and I find this really kind of very telling, right? Even as teenagers, when we're looking for a mate, right? We're looking to love and be loved, right?
Yeah.
And yet we don't really realize that that's what we're looking for. And yet all of the things that you're speaking of so far are geared to embody that.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, it's funny how life works, step-by-step process. But then eventually I did find a girlfriend, and we had nothing to do with spirituality. I forgot all about it. And I went into technology, programming, and became this hardcore engineer. Engineers tend to think in black and white, like it's true or false. Where is the evidence? Show me the evidence for everything. So that's what my life became for the next 10, 12 years. I came over to North America, started working with a lot of startups, a lot of large corporations, and that became my frame of mind. Right.
Now, in your quiet moments, though, right, which I'm sure you had plenty of, there was still that stirring, that inkling to want to know how things fit. And I really, in some way, I admire the route that you took in computer programming, because it is exacting, and there's an inner world, I would think, that exists among all programmers that's a much deeper one than they let on, and that they're looking for that connection in the code that they write, perhaps. So do you find that to be true?
Yeah. So coding, programming changes you from within, because what happens is you are trying to put together these disparate pieces of technology to work together into a system that works harmoniously. The other thing that happens is you get very used to finding faults in your own work, like debugging the code.
We're already self-deprecating enough. Come on, right?
But that exercise of writing a piece of code and then finding 100 bugs in it, and then chasing those bugs, fixing it, I think it removes a little bit of that rejection. It makes you more it makes you more how can I say it, robust, or makes you see life as not perfect to begin with. You assume there's going to be problems. You assume that things are not going to work out, and you are going to have to, use hit and trial to find where things are going wrong,
Right.
and then
And there's
fix
a
them.
line out of Dune even that I find really appropriate in this, and that's challenge. Change doesn't happen without challenge, and the sleeper awakes in that challenge, right? Because of the inquiry, the questions, and the exploration into things unknown.
Yes.
That often have a bit of fear in that as well, because as you're discovering things, you're also confronting things that don't belong.
Yes. So that's what happened. And then life was moving along. What ended up happening was, along with the professional success, I was getting a lot of problems at home. So I don't have a very good relationship with my parents, and my marriage was falling apart. I didn't have a good relationship with my ex-spouse now. And then I had my firstborn child, and I could not bond with him. I could not have a good connection with him, even when he was like a baby. And that is one point in my life which sort of devastated me, because family is very important to me. And then up until that point, I was getting away with me blaming others for my problems, because we all have problems. But I used to be able to say, oh, you don't understand me, you don't listen to me. But now I'm not able to say that to my like a 2-month-old baby, or like right up till like a few years old.
Right.
And that,
well, and even Steve Covey, what the fifth insight or fifth habit that he expresses is seek first to understand, then be understood.
Yeah.
And oftentimes we have this prescriptive, this is the truth that we project on others from our own bias, whatever that may be.
Exactly.
And we're less than vulnerable in our perception of others. And to reach that place, how did you find it? Because it sounds like that's where you were headed.
Yeah. So when that happened, you are forced to look at yourself and say, okay, what is wrong with me? I mean, what is going on with me, and how can I fix it? And I went into depression. I was suicidal. But I knew that I needed to find solutions. And so I went to therapists and psychologists and things of that nature. But they gave me some insights, but did not really move any did not make any major shifts in my situation.
Did you find that in that situation, if I may, was it more of the kinds of questions that they didn't ask? Because I've consulted a lot, right? And on both sides. And I find that it's better, the better the questions. It doesn't matter what your answers are to them, or the sense of giving something to them. It's about hearing yourself talk and having that observer present to observe the process and patterns of your thinking, which then give you an awareness that you can change.
Well, I mean, that is absolutely true, the type of questions. But in that state of mind, when you are depressed, as human nature is, we all look for like immediate relief. We all look for a quick fix, right? So yes, they gave me some insights. One of the insights they gave me was, it has all to do with your relationship, because at that point I did not even realize what I was going through. And then observing from the outside, they said, it's all about your relationships, because in our life, we need to have support systems. We need to have things that we can rely upon as absolute truths or foundations. And I was like, okay, but that is my main problem. I cannot have my relationships. And you're telling me the fix is to have good relationships. So tell me how to get there. That's like, So,
Well,
so
perfect
that,
question would be, if you had
mm,
something to change in your life, what would it be and
yeah.
why? Right?
Yes, yeah,
And
yeah,
which is what you
yes.
got in touch with.
Yes. So as I was talking to these people, they were giving me some insights, but then I could not feel any relief. So that's when I found meditation and learning more about the mind. And I also, being an engineer, dive into neuroscience and how our
Mhm.
neurons work, and quantum physics and all of these things.
Was it a challenge to look at and be distinct about the difference between the brain and the mind?
Yeah, yeah, of course, because when you start uh, diving into these things, majority of the literature is all about the brain, how the brain works, and the electromagnetic pulses the brain is sending. So again, as an engineer, you start to go towards that route.
Sure.
Um,
Well,
you
yeah,
know,
it's definitive. You've got some structure that you can understand, and especially having an empirical background, right? You're
yes,
looking at the
yeah.
numbers.
Exactly, exactly. But then when you start to meditate, and I've had some experiences with some really, really powerful shamans, and near death experiences or out of body experiences where you know I saw my own death and things like that. And I was like, this. I mean, I was really perplexed. I was like, this is not something that I can explain with the human mind. Like, my mind is there physically, and I'm looking at it, and I'm outside. So what is going on?
I
And
may
so that,
be misquoting, but I think Tolley is the one that said a series or a breakthrough is often a series of breakdowns.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that was exactly it, right? Like those breakdowns, and then the breakthrough or realization was the mind is very, very different. The soul is very different than the physical.
Mhm.
And the beauty was, like, for me, longest time was, okay, the longest after I had realization, I was sort of, I did not feel depressed anymore. So that was the good news. But then this new urge of explaining these things came to be, like, okay, what is the physical, what is the non-physical, how the hell do they connect all of this stuff, right?
Oh, yeah.
um
And there have been thousands of volumes of information that
mhm,
people just like us have experienced the
yeah,
weird stuff, right?
yeah, yeah,
And then tried to articulate it in order to share it with others is because it's so powerful,
yeah, yeah,
right?
exactly.
And
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
amazing work. And of course, it started with the Vedas.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, as you said, the experiences were powerful, and I wanted to share that with others, especially, first of all, with my ex-spouse. And it's very difficult to explain these experiences. And then when I talk to a lot of people, about meditation, about these modalities, most people say, oh, well, sometimes their reactions are weird. Sometimes people listen to it and they say, okay, that sounds good, but I don't have time for all of this stuff. Some other people say, my mind is too busy for me to be able to, like, even wrap my head around it or give it any attention.
Mhm.
So as I
Let alone attempt to have a direct experience of
Yes,
it, because
yes,
that's what
yes,
changes everything is just
yes,
acquiescing to the opportunity and
yes.
trying it,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah. And then what was happening is, like, I was getting deeper into artificial intelligence. So I've been building systems using artificial intelligence for last 15 years. I have 4 patents in artificial intelligence. So I started to see how our mind interacts with artificial intelligence. I actually see artificial intelligence as a continuum between our mind and the outside world.
That's an
Uh,
interesting way that you went into answering a question I was going to ask, which was what aspects of Eastern philosophy or spirituality have influenced your perspective on artificial intelligence and its potential impact on society.
Yeah. So that's what I'm already seeing that, right? Everybody can see it because artificial intelligence is basically a bunch of algorithms feeding off of the human consciousness. So whatever we experience in real life, we feed it back to artificial intelligence, and we tell artificial intelligence, okay, learn all this stuff and tell me based on this, what is going to.
Isn't it funny? It's with AI, it's the same, like with ChatGPT, right? Yeah. It's the depth and specificity of the questions that we ask, the inquiry instructions, right? Which reflects both on ourselves as human beings, as well as that rich pool of knowledge that's now available in a different form that we can almost self-reflect with.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we can experience now, but even now most people are just using ChatGPT for like very basic things. But I'll get into that. But what happened was like this was around 2012 2013. I saw platforms like Facebook and Twitter and all of these basically all the publishing platforms out there. They are a bunch of artificial intelligence algorithms. And I saw how they are affecting the common consciousness, the collective consciousness. I mean, how utilizing
people have become products.
Exactly. Not only that, but these platforms are able to change the collective consciousness, change the perception. A lot of things, unexpected things like presidential elections or major mandates were being impacted by these platforms. And basically, these platforms are AI algorithms. And since I understand how this technology works, I am able to see exactly what is happening, because these algorithms are very highly fine-tuned for sensationalism, for creating that feeding off of the negative emotions of people, fears and all that. Because when you create that, then people engage with that content more, they click on the ads more, they stay on the platforms more. So that is what exactly is happening now, right?
So it edifies the programming that we've already received through most everything in our society. Absolutely. Is to fear the unknown or the other.
Yes.
Whomever that may be. If they're different than us, then something's amiss.
Yes.
Right? So do you see anything acknowledging the massive manipulation of the societal consciousness that you've just noted?
Mm-hmm.
Do you see anything on the other side of that is either beginning to happen or is in process already?
See, that is my work, and that is how I have been connecting with people like you and others. Because one thing we need to realize is that no technology, including AI, is malicious in itself. It's the human being behind the technology that is using it for their purpose. And I feel like most people who use it for nefarious purposes, they don't even know what they are doing exactly. Like, they are not very conscious to begin with. So they are just looking for profit motive and whatnot.
Self-centered.
Yes.
Right. It's all about me, what I can get, what I can take from the world.
Yeah.
And yet there's this other side that, that we, I think, can agree that to receive what you're looking for, you have to give it as well. There's this notion now that's being talked about of what we seek is also seeking us.
Yes, absolutely.
So how have you experienced that, something that you were looking for that then you came across serendipitously, synchronistically, however that happened?
Yeah. So these all of these experiences combined, when I talk to people about picking a different path and getting this resistance, and then realizing that AI as a technology has the power to change people's perceptions. And moreover, get them into a meditative state, even if they don't want to do the work. Because I realize people don't want to do the work because essentially human species is a lazy species. We all seek convenience. We all seek the results without doing the work. That is what our drives the innovation, because we tell ourselves, okay, let's work for next 30 years, and then I'm going to rest.
Right. Then you have the whole, well, work smart, not hard.
Yes.
Mindset. Now it's shifting to the let's integrate, because we're recognizing there are some things that we just have to be practical about. There's a process we have to go through, and we have to be disciplined enough to be attentive to the details.
Yes.
How do you find that in your own work, and how is that reflective of what you're seeing coming with the use of AI?
So the idea here is that now, before the release of ChatGPT, a handful of people understood what this technology is, how it can be used, and people who understood it, they benefited tremendously from it. But now with ChatGPT, the masses can sort of touch and feel it and see, okay, what does it mean? But moving forward from here on out, what is going to happen is that machines are going to have thousands of percentage of higher IQ than any human being alive or dead or whatever. So the machines are going to be thinking much deeper, faster. And
which begs the question, okay, intelligence is one thing, and that's great. That's a knowledge base. What about emotional intelligence?
That's what I was getting at, right? So
okay.
As human beings, we are made of these two aspects, our cognitive intelligence and our emotional intelligence. So if cognitive intelligence, we are not able to compete with the machine anymore, I think that will be rendered almost useless, almost valueless. And the emotional intelligence part of it will become much more valuable. So people who are more conscious, who have the emotional intelligence, they will be at the top of the society. So there will be a fundamental shift that will happen, that people with more deeper consciousness and more ability to sort of empathize.
So taking it back to your roots, right? And the Hindu calendar, the Kali Yuga, right? That it says that we are in a time of that major transformation where consciousness will rise in others, like we're talking about. And the interesting thing, it's not just the Kali Yuga. There are at least 6 or 8 other calendars that, the Sumerian, the Mayan, the Aztec, the Hopi, the Egyptian, all of those, and there's probably more, that are historically pointing to this time of awakening. We don't necessarily know how it's going to happen, only that it's destined to, and it's our experience of it now. Do you feel that there was a silver lining in COVID that got people to begin to look inside with the obsession on self-hygiene and sequestration?
Well, everything is part of the grand plan, I guess. COVID was definitely sort of like a test run, if you will, like a mini preview of what is to come. Because a major thing that I noticed during COVID was obviously people going inwards, and that is all good, because I have been working remotely for 20 years. So it didn't make that much of a difference to me personally. Mm-hmm. But what I noticed, one thing which most people don't talk about, is this was the first time in history that governments just gave money free to their citizens. And they said, okay, take it. You don't need to work, don't need to do anything, just take the money and be happy. That's a fundamental shift that has never happened before. Never, ever. So now this is pointing towards a future where, as I said, when machines are able to do the work more accurately and faster, I think the definition of work will change for us. Like definition of producing value in the world will change. Mm-hmm. People talk about job loss and everything. but I call it job displacement or job upgrade, where we will be,
Opportunistic times, right?
yeah, yes, because we will be rewarded for things that may not be counted as work today. We may be awarded for just imagining a better future, or listening to other people, or collaborating with other in other creative processes. So
Do you
in
find,
that,
I'm sorry, didn't mean to cut you off. Do you find that that also includes a resurgence of arts and culture?
yeah, exactly, that's where I was going, because
Good. Okay.
um, historically also you can see, like, during the Renaissance period in Europe, like there was like about 300 years where creative people, philosophers, musicians, painters, they were at the top of the society, not the people who were producing physical goods. So that kind of society is going to be formed. And then the other thing is, I believe that concepts like universal basic income will be the norm, where not everybody will need to work, and the pricing of the physical necessities that we need in life, they will come drastically down, because now we are able to produce them faster and cheaper. So people will be able to experience whatever kind of life they want. I mean, we won't have to
So I
slave.
hear you saying there'll be less competition and more collaboration.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
And then it'll be fueled by, as I said, like, I firmly believe universal basic income will become a reality. So it will be basically driven by the internal motivation. Okay, what is it that you want to create in this world? And if that means you will be, learning music for the rest of your life, then so be it. And or if you don't want to work, then so be it. Like, these concepts are very foreign to people right now, but I think that's the reality we are moving towards.
Well, I'm hoping that the efforts I'm making with One World and a New World, for
Mm.
one, it opens that door for others to listen to conversations exploring these topics that they may not have otherwise had access to, right? And the weirdness that's going on inside of them doesn't seem so weird anymore. It's like, yeah, I've got company now. Maybe I can explore that, right? And then there's also, for instance, over my shoulder, there's a logo for a global peace movement, Live and Let Live, right? And so this is exploring a couple of things: a moral and an ethical, moral and a legal principle. The moral is being an excellent human, and we can unpack what that really means. That's open discussion, and intellectually humble and psychologically safe environments to do so. And then the legal principle is about removing every aspect of aggression in the law for individuals, clear up to governments. So aggression effectively then allows us to move into a more cooperative, collaborative, even a caring and compassionate society, because we don't have that threat anymore. Now, how long that's going to take, we don't know. However, it is obvious that that's one of the steps that needs to take place. Not getting people to step up politically and go into a world that's, that seems corrupt beyond any stretch of imagination, and then begin to write that. Again, it's going to take time, and it's going to take really stalwart people to step up and do that. The fact that we've begun is a great sign.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Now, how are you with the current, what do you see your efforts moving toward, and how do you see others in your field that are taking advantage of this deeper level of intuition, of understanding, of care and compassion for others? Where is this going in the near future that you can see?
Well, the interesting but unfortunate part is that people who are in the engineering fields or disciplines, they don't understand what you and I are talking about.
Well, obviously some do,
Yeah,
right? Because you're in it.
Yeah, few do. But and the people who talk about these different modalities like spirituality, they don't tend to understand the technology part of it. So I believe, yeah, there are a handful of people who are like sort of at the intersection of these things.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Do you see
so
science being able to reflect that now, like in quantum physics and the models and the math and science that's involved that actually demonstrates that there is a bridge and that spirituality has a practicality to it?
yeah. So see, what happens is that people do acknowledge, let's say I'm talking to a hardcore technologist or scientist, they do acknowledge, okay, quantum physics is something that that can help us visualize what spiritual experiences mean and stuff like that. But again, they stop at that point and they say, okay, until you prove it to me, I cannot accept it. So the only two ways are
Direct
whether
experience.
a direct experience,
Right.
or somebody with a direct experience comes up with an equation that proves it, then they will be forced to accept that fact and say, oh, okay, now I understand it.
Well, that's a really interesting perspective, because up until now, it's only been available by direct experience. There's been no equation that can, Einstein tried, others of his ilk during that time frame also attempted, and they also made the comments that nature has the secrets, right? And we need to understand what those are. It's extracting the math and science from that then that we're doing now to help us to move forward in a more collective and harmonious way. I loved how you framed it earlier, because this is leading us to harmony among people and planet. That's
exactly.
Natural course of action, or so it seems, because we certainly don't want to head down or continue heading down the path of destruction that we've been on.
Yeah, exactly. But I think from what I'm seeing, the evidence of it, we are actually heading towards the right direction here, because let's talk about, like you mentioned, Einstein, very, very smart person, but he was like, in 100 years, how much technology has evolved, how much have we learned since Einstein? So let's say there was another Einstein today, they will be in a much better position to take that work forward and find that equation, because we have supercomputers now, we have artificial intelligence now, we have more collaboration around the. I mean, in the time of Einstein, if two scientists had to collaborate, they had to take a ocean liner for months to just to shake hands. And now we can sit across each other on a Zoom session and get so many people involved. So the idea is that technology itself is accelerating at an exponential rate. And so as people are making these discoveries, and as people start to work on these first-hand experiences and trying to explain it, there is more likelihood of some breakthrough happening. The only problem is the resistance that for all we know, the equation already exists is somewhere in this space-time continuum, like right now, right? But the way that science has been set up is that you really need to be a prominent, very prominent, respected scientist to be able to make a claim like that and accepted by the society.
It's much more a linear fashion rather than the non-linear or non-local, which is where that direct experience comes in. And that non-local experience, how do you put a multi-dimensional experience into an equation and have it relevant to that direct experience?
Well, I'll give you a quick idea, right? Like I'll give you a thing that has been percolating in my mind, that has been showing up in my meditations. Is like until now, even the science thinks that consciousness is something produced in our brain. It's like some form of electromagnetic, like sort of pulses happening with chemical reactions, and then consciousness is produced. But what if consciousness is universe? What if it is like a persistent thing that is a form of energy, just like gravity? Just like gravity just exists, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we experience it. So similarly, consciousness just exists, and we are just antennas catching a different wavelength of that energy field, right?
Almost
Now,
like a, go ahead.
now, if you are able to measure or quantify or prove with an equation that this consciousness is a universal force in the universe, not an individual thing that we experience, that changes a whole bunch of things.
Mm-hmm. So
right?
would it deal with patterns and processes then, almost like fractals, right? That are
Yes.
repetitive, something like, most in pretty much all major religions, there's this idea of a trinity. Different names, right? It's still a trinity. Well, where does that come from? If there's a baseline of that where there's a triune force, if you will, that we don't necessarily know exactly what it is. However, we can see other models in stepping that down to a micro level of the proton, electron, and neutron. Now, that still leaves out the hydrogen atom, though. Question, where does it show up? Well, it's the most plentiful gas in the universe. It powers our sun, and it's also the bonding agent for our DNA. So, and I don't find many, there may be some, but I don't find anybody looking into that as much yet. And that's something I discovered back in the late 80s, right? So there's this, how do we articulate? How do we ask the right questions? How do we take this linear train and, remove some cars or add some cars and get it to follow a different path with logic and linearity that leads us to that same place?
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is, as you just said, right? Like a lot of people have these similar ideas, but also when you learn about how science works these days, science works by somebody publishing a paper, somebody else who believes in that person will review that paper, they will endorse it, and they will say, yeah, I have conducted some experiments to to validate this idea, and now more and more people validate it. It becomes known as a fact that we all accept.
Right.
But the problem happens is at the first stage, because if somebody who's working on this topic and they are not well known, they are not very extroverted, they don't have a community of scientists that believe in them, their study is going to be suppressed right at the beginning. It will not even see the day of light. And that's the world we live in, right? So the idea is that this whole consciousness is, it's playing a game, in my opinion, of creating that resistance, that challenge, so that there is a powerful enough force that breaks through that. And then,
well, again, it's back to what we seek is seeking us, right? Consciousness simply is, and there's lots of research and study and attempts at explanation. There's even Robert Bigelow gave a $500,000 reward for a paper to explain life after death in such a way that it's irrefutable. And it just so happens one of the gentlemen that interviewed me several years ago, Dr. Jeffrey Mishlove, won that award. All the people on the planet that I could think of that's well deserved of it would be him, because he's been interviewing people in parapsychological realms for over 30 years.
Oh, okay.
Plus, this is a passion of his own, where he's trying to understand consciousness and how it works, right? And being able to speak with a guy like that and being asked the questions that nobody else had asked to allow me to express things that had yet been unheard, right? There, that listening was then present. Now, whether everybody else heard it or not, didn't matter. The fact that there was an opening allowed that thought and the expression of the answer, or the question, the expression of the answer, to ripple through what I call the thoughtmosphere. And I'm sure, let me reframe that. Have you also experienced things that you've had discussions with either inside yourself or with others that are of such a apocalyptic magnitude that you saw it ripple through society in ways that were demonstrated through articles, through publications, through interviews or other things that, yeah, that's what we were talking about, right? Have you noticed that yet?
Yeah, I mean, for the longest time, I've had this notion about, humanity coming together in oneness and all of that stuff. And the release of AI, because I've been working with ChatGPT and its predecessor technologies for about 3 years now. So 3 years ago, I saw, okay, this is going to happen. So the release of ChatGPT and the reaction it got from the masses is the biggest evidence that what I saw in my meditations is sort of the way it is unfolding. It is unfolding. Yeah.
Isn't that exciting? And yet it's like there's this desire for expediency, right? And then that's coupled with, oh, I just got to be patient. Right, because we want to push and pull the energy to move things in ways that we know would benefit others. And yet, again, there's that fifth habit, right? Seek first to understand, then to be understood. Because in that seeking to understand, you may also find that, hey, it's already working. All I need to do is plug in what I'm doing with others, and it just magnifies everything.
Exactly.
And so I hear that exactly right. So you find that. How do you see yourself and others in moving the needle?
Well, see, I'll just speak about myself. I feel like, as I said earlier, moving forward from here, people with higher and deeper consciousness will have advantage. And if they work together with technology, like imagine if the Buddha had access to the internet. Imagine if Jesus Christ had access to artificial intelligence. How much impact? I mean, in my opinion, Jesus Christ was the best salesperson who ever lived. He sold an idea to over 1 billion people, but it took 2,000 years to sell that idea to over 1 billion people, right?
And we still don't understand it.
Exactly.
Right.
But
the
now,
same way. Right?
Exactly.
And here's the interesting thing, though. According to their teachings, it's still connected. Infinite intelligence is where we garner everything from, and all things are connected in that, including what we create in the artificial realm, because it's really artificial. It's our creation.
Exactly. Yeah. And so from, I think what is happening is, I think at some level the collective consciousness is working with, I think it's hard to put it in this way, but I think we are giving rise to small mini Buddhas around the world who have who have this technology, who have these modern facilities at their hand, who can collectively create huge, much bigger impact than the Buddha and the Jesus and all of these people combined, right?
And yes, I agree, and I see that happening as well. Now, there's also in the creation of that, there's the one thing that we don't, and we haven't mentioned yet, which is the essence of it all, and that's our being, right? Which is what that consciousness then resides in and allows us to, well, what I came up with several years ago is we can't think our way through a system built on vibration. We have to sense our way through it, which is a different apparatus than we've been used to. And yet now we're having evidence of that in the exploration of how people feel around those who have that being in place and are those mini Buddhas or those mini Jesuses, right? And there's,
so let me point out there, what you just said, sense it, right? So that's what I said earlier. As the machines become more powerful in thinking, our sense, our ability to sense will become more powerful. So so maybe in the very near future, you don't even have to go through an extreme personal experience to be able to, say, okay, there is something.
That would be quite a relief for many, right?
Yeah.
There are so many, tragedy to triumph stories, and the trauma that is in our society, and all the things, all the efforts that are being made to heal all of that. What if we could just say, okay, that was then, and just put a stop block on it, if you will, and make choices from that point to include what works in a positive way. And that's a real tough place for most of us, because we're still, even though we know that being in the present is the most powerful moment we can have, we still bring in the past and future in that oftentimes, and delude, diffuse, and often denigrate the energy that is present in the moment when we don't have those considerations.
Exactly.
It's like the eternal now. We're free to create whatever we want. Well, what do we want? We want better things, or we want a better life. We want more congruence. We want harmony among people and planet. So all these, as I see it, and maybe you can reflect on this too, that in these organizational developments, including the virtual groups that have formed, seem to edify this process is taking place when you're able to step back and look at it. Now, granted, most of us are still so in the survival mode on a daily basis, especially raising families, right? We don't have time to explore all of that. Do you see that opportunity changing, where the availability of the information and perhaps even direct experience is less complicated?
So I will answer it this way, right? Like, if you have seen the movie Avatar, on the different planet. I mean, the essence of that movie was that that all plants have a global network, and they support each other through their root systems and all of that stuff, right? So, and it's spread across the planet. So one plant is connected to another plant throughout the planet. So I see the human network similarly, because everything that we are doing in our life is basically, in my opinion, is not to acquire the thing that we are wanting. It's about finding the person who can help us acquire the thing we are wanting. It's always about somebody else giving it to us, because we are not able to produce anything on our own.
For help.
Exactly.
Right? How do we learn how to ask for help? We're taught.
Yes.
You got to do it on your own.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? You got to be that stalwart individual that just puts your nose to the grindstone and make stuff happen. Well, that is just a fallacy when you just, look up and look around. We got people.
Yeah. So to answer your question, I think, just this notion of using the internet, using Zooms, using these virtual groups is collecting people who are, at the same wavelength. Like, again, utilizing the example of Buddha, he had 7 disciples, and it took them years to just like convert or pass on the message to a few thousand people on foot. They had to walk on foot so imagine if they had like a data center where they could beam their message to people around the globe, and then they had Zoom meetings where, like, how much more effective that will be, right? So now you bring it to the present world, present time. Yeah, of course, like if people are able to connect, they are able to understand, okay, this is what it means, this is what an experience, a spiritual experience means, this is how we fit into the world, this is how science can be incorporated. All of these things, they exponentially they exponentially speed up the process. And again, looking at science, we don't need to change the entire humanity to change the planet. Only 4% of the people, or only 4% of the humanity needs to shift, because then it creates a ripple effect.
Right. It's interesting. You mentioned the time truncation, and it has to do, in my opinion, with the establishment of greater harmony. Right. The more harmonious we are, the more we can get done in less time, because there's less diffusion or distractions in it. What I find really interesting is that there was a gentleman in the realms of ufology, if you will. He ran Canada's Project Blue Book. Right? The US had Project Blue Book. That's probably the most well-known. Well, theirs was called Project Magnet. And he had discussions with what he called people from elsewhere. And one of the things that they gave to him as far as imparting knowledge was that their concept of time was the measurement in the change of entropy. Right? So that's an experience. That's not mechanical. Even though we do have the mechanical, because the two, they have to merge, or they're not of good value. But I find that that his memoirs were published, because he never intended for them to be published, but they were published in 1964. And there's other information in that. I'll just share it. It's bit.ly /W Wilbert S Smith. And it's about an 80-page memoir that is full of some really interesting things that are exactly what you and I are talking about, and then some. Right? And so these guys are like millennia ahead of us, if not more. And they're just trying to say, look, guys, here's your own progression, and we can assist. We're not going to do it for you. Matter of fact, you got to learn to get along with each other on the planet as one before we'll even enter the picture. Otherwise, what good is it? Right? Because there'll still be factions that are trying to war or control other technology. We can't have that. We've got to share it. We're all on one planet. We are one people. We are all relatives.
Exactly.
So how do you see that relativism coming forth in the near future, and what can you recommend to others that they might see as evidence so that they would have a better reason to explore further for themselves?
See, I try to do things in a practical way, because if we want to talk to people in mass, we need to give practical framework. So what I tell people is, look, you are trying to achieve something. Let's say you want to make a lot of money, right? Go back in time, think about your life, and say, consider every dollar that you have earned in your life. Have you ever made anything yourself, or somebody else gave it to you? And the answer is always that somebody else gave it to me, irrespective of how you got it. Whether you put in your hours or you sold something, but that money came into your account.
Well, even insights, right? Going back to the mind, right? When you have the question, those insights, those answers come from somebody else. They come from you, but it's someplace else, some other you that you haven't become familiar with yet. Infinite or access to infinite intelligence. And it's still given.
So let me finish that thought.
Sure.
So then I tell people that, and most of the people, they are always going in the hamster wheel. They are struggling through their life because they think they need to learn how to get that themselves. But if they change their mindset on who do they want to connect with, who will help them get that, now their search is not so much a struggle, but it's more a search for other human beings and talking to them and saying, okay, connection, right? So now they seek that connection in self-interest, and that is like something that's a self-propelling engine. You don't need to like push it. You just need to plant that idea and then let them do the work, and then on top of that, you can use technology like artificial intelligence. So imagine there was a Google search engine where you said that, oh, today I want to feel happy. Who can help me in this world? Who can make me feel happy? And you just search, and then 7 names show up, and you connect with them on the spot in real time, and you feel that happiness, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now you are building that network across the globe, and people start to get what they want, because they are connecting with people who are able to get them what they want. And so that's the way I can see it can unfold.
Right. Now, are those getting what you want or need? Are those always tangible, or are there a lot of intangible things with that?
Well, the funny thing is, even if we talk about tangible, at the end of the day, when we boil it down, we are looking for an intangible emotion. Like even if I, even if I like buy a bright red color Ferrari, it's not the Ferrari. It's the emotion that I want to
how you feel with it. Right.
Now, the intermediate object, which is the Ferrari and the money I exchange for it, is just a way to say, okay, that is the threshold I need to cross. But let's say if I meet somebody so in tune, so beautiful, so like they can just say a couple of sentences to me, and I feel that same emotion, then I can bypass all the buying of Ferrari and all of that stuff. I just get it directly, right? And that's what the idea I'm talking about, right?
The wonderful notion of just stepping into that energy field and feeling the sensation that you want. Now, is it so? I guess kind of what I'm hearing and sensing from our conversation, from my own exploration too, is that there's this bringing together of the sense. It's like we have a operating system. We've got a file system that has all kinds of folders and storage. And being able to lock in on that sense or that feeling when we have it, right? We don't know what it feels like or sounds or the sense is until we have it. But once we have it, then we can pull that file up and experience it, even if it's just going into meditation for a moment and remembering it, which then brings us, it's like, the situation of conflict, hit the pause button, going to that place was, okay, this really isn't about me. And how can I serve it better? And then allowing yourself to step into that mode, which is kind of what I see in the work that you're doing. You've queried, okay, how can I best fit this evolutionary path with my specific skill set, knowledge, and ability? And you stepped up to do so. Now, in one sense, I see that as aligning your frequency as well as your genetic code, right? Or the soul and body aspect. Is it possible that we all have that, and that when we start asking these questions, at least in that 4%, perhaps more, right? That there is a particular, for lack of a better, and I don't mean perfect, but a perfected form, fit, and function in the world.
I see, that is part of evolution. I don't know I'm qualified enough to say anything about that. Evolution can happen.
Are you experiencing that for yourself, though? Do you feel that connection that you've made in what you're doing, first of all, in who you are,
of course,
what you're doing, and the resulting having reflects that. Okay, good.
The self-awareness part was the first step. First you get to know yourself, And then you say, okay, how do I expand that that realization about yourself and achieve the purpose that I want? Because the thing is, without self-awareness, you're not even sure of what exactly are you chasing. Most people don't even know what they want. So once you become self-aware, I'll give you another example. Like in my meditations, after certain experiences, what came to my consciousness that was my mission was to use all of these things that we just talked about, artificial intelligence, deeper consciousness, to help 20 people win the Nobel Prize. That is my specific mission in life, right? And now that specific vision came to me, and now that is so much clearer and vivid and tangible than I used to think. Oh, I want to change the world. I want to do something, like I want to make a lot of money or whatever that is, which was
those are all nebulous things, right? It's like we're talking
yeah.
about. What's the specifics? What's the tangible, practical, pragmatic activity that we can engage on an individual basis? And then that turns into a collective, because all of those pieces then fit in a larger whole. It's like a divine tapestry, if you will, that each of us are threads. Like going back to the Vedas, right? The unit of consciousness. We're each a thread of that divine light incarnate. And they say, that we're actually God incarnate. That's a real tough one for people to, because, the organized religion activity has set that aside. And it needs to be brought back, because if we adhere to that idea that we are infinite intelligence or cosmic intelligence, cosmic consciousness condensed into form, because we've lowered the vibratory rate to allow us to experience a physical reality, it's still just energy. It's just lower vibes and what we experience as physicality. This seems to be offering us a much different view of what our future can be like. And I think that's the hope.
Well, that not just what the future will be like, it's an inevitable future, because you can look at history, right? It's you can look at history, draw a graph on history along the evolutionary path. It's all been about consolidation. It's all been about collaboration. Yes, we are still divided, but compare that to 100 years ago, compare that to 200 years ago, 500 years ago. Like we used to be able to just take a big rock and throw at somebody just for a piece of meat and say, okay, that's justifiable, right? Like that was not long time ago, right? So if you graph it out, like, I think we are not, that's the inevitable future of humanity.
I would agree. And I look forward to living it together. That's going to be wonderful. Manuj, I really appreciate the time that you've given, the intelligence that you've shared, the dynamics, the expansiveness of connecting the digital and the spiritual worlds, and how we might all benefit from that just by seeing that we could do this, and our growth is inevitable.
Exactly. Yeah. No, thank you so much. It was very a deep, interesting conversation for sure.
Very good.
Thanks.
And namaste.
Namaste.
And in la catch, thank you for sticking with us for this episode of One World in a New World. I'm your host, Zen Benefiel, and I'll see you next time.